proposition the morning rain painted streaks down the gallery windows as Victoria Sterling stood before her latest acquisition. A bold, abstract piece that seemed to mirror the chaos in her life. The Sterling Art Gallery, nestled in the heart of downtown's cultural district, had been her sanctuary for 3 years. Today it felt more like a beautiful prison. The bank called again. Diego Santos said softly from behind her, his voice carrying the weight of unspoken worry. Her business partner and closest friend held a stack of papers that might as well have been her death sentence. They want an answer by Friday. Victoria traced her finger along the window pane, watching the city blur through the rain. At 28, she had built something meaningful from nothing, transforming her late grandmother's small inheritance into a respected gallery that showcased emerging artists. But respect didn't pay the bills, and the economic downturn had hit the art world particularly hard. "How much time do we have?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would break her heart. 6 weeks, maybe 8 if we can negotiate. Diego's accent carried traces of his Barcelona childhood, softening the harsh reality of their situation. "Victoria, there are other options." The Harrington Group made another offer. She turned to face him, her green eyes flashing with determination. "You mean sell out to corporate vultures, who'll turn this into another soulless investment space?" "Never." The gallery door chimed, and both of them looked up to see a figure silhouetted against the gray morning light.
"I'll wait."
The man who entered moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to owning every room he walked into. Tall and lean, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Victoria's monthly rent, he carried himself like controlled power. Nathan Cross. Victoria recognized him immediately. His face had graced business magazines for years as the enigmatic CEO of Crosstech Industries, who had revolutionized digital security systems before he turned 30. In person, he was more imposing than his photographs suggested. Dark hair, steel blue eyes, and a jawline that could cut glass. There was something predatory about his stillness as he surveyed the gallery. "Miss Sterling," his voice was deep, cultured, with an edge that suggested he wasn't used to being kept waiting. "Yes." Victoria stepped forward, her chin lifted despite the curiosity burning through her. "I'm afraid we're by appointment only. If you're interested in any of the pieces, I'm not here for art." His eyes locked with hers, and she felt an unexpected jolt of electricity. "I'm here to make you an offer." Diego shifted protectively closer to Victoria. "Sir, if this is about the building," Nathan's gaze flicked to Diego dismissively before returning to Victoria. "I need to hire you for an evening. One night. $50,000. The number hung in the air, like a live wire. Victoria felt her heart skip, but she kept her expression neutral. "I'm not sure I understand. I need a date." Nathan's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "For a charity gala next Saturday? High society, formal affair. You'll need to convince everyone there that you're completely infatuated with me." Victoria's eyebrows rose. "You want to hire me as an escort? I want to hire you as an actress." Nathan stepped closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something darker, more masculine. "One night of pretending to be madly in love with me? $50,000 cash?" The silence stretched between them, thick with tension and unspoken questions. Victoria was acutely aware of Diego's sharp intake of breath, of the rain still streaming down the windows, of the way Nathan's presence seemed to fill the entire gallery. "Why me?" she asked finally. Nathan pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. Victoria's breath caught. It was Celeste Montrose, society darling, and daughter of real estate mogul Richard Montrose. Golden hair, perfect features, the kind of woman who looked like she'd been carved from marble by a master sculptor. "My ex-fiancée," Nathan said, his voice carefully neutral. "She'll be at the gala with her new lover, my biggest business rival." Understanding dawned on Victoria. "You want to make them jealous? I want to show them exactly what they lost."
"How?"
Nathan's eyes darkened. "Celeste threw me over for Blake's older money and political connections. She thought I'd come crawling back. Instead, I want her to see me with someone who makes her look like a pale imitation." Victoria studied Nathan's face, looking for cracks in his composed facade. "And you think, I can do that?" "I've done my research, Miss Sterling. You grew up in high society, before your family lost everything in your father's scandal. You know how to move in those circles, how to speak their language. But you also have something Celeste never did. He paused. Authenticity. The decision, the mention of her father's downfall, hit like a physical blow. Victoria's family had indeed fallen from grace when she was 22. Her father's investment firm had crashed in a blaze of fraud accusations and bitter lawsuits. The society friends had vanished overnight, leaving Victoria to rebuild her life from the ashes of her former privilege. "You've certainly done your homework," she said coolly. "I always research my investments." Nathan's gaze never wavered. "The question is, are you interested in saving your gallery?" Victoria felt the weight of the offer, the impossible temptation of it. $50,000 would cover her debts and give her enough breathing room to rebuild. But the cost felt higher than money. "What exactly would this performance entail?" she asked. Nathan stepped closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes. "You'll be my devoted girlfriend? Hang on my every word? Laugh at my jokes? Make it clear to everyone watching that you can't keep your hands off me?" Heat flashed through Victoria at his words, and she hated herself for the reaction. "And you? What will you be doing while I'm performing this Oscar-worthy act?" "Making sure every man in that room wishes he was me." Nathan's voice dropped to a murmur. "Making sure Celeste realizes she made the biggest mistake of her life?" Diego cleared his throat. "Victoria, this sounds dangerous." "It is dangerous," Nathan finished, his eyes still locked on Victoria's. "Dangerous for them. They've had everything handed to them their entire lives. It's time they learned what it feels like to want something they can't have." Victoria found herself taking a step closer to Nathan, drawn by something she couldn't name. "And after one night, what then?" "Then you go back to your life, $50,000 richer, and I go back to mine. No strings, no complications." Nathan reached into his jacket and pulled out a contract. Everything spelled out in black and white. Victoria took the papers, her fingers brushing against Nathan's. The contact sent a shock up her arm that she tried to ignore. "I need time to think about this. Do you have until tonight?" Nathan pulled out a business card and handed it to her. "My private number. Call me when you've decided." He moved toward the door, then paused and looked back. "For what it's worth, Miss Sterling, I think you'll find the evening more interesting than you expect." After he left, the gallery felt strangely empty. Victoria stared at the contract in her hands, her mind racing. "This is insane," Diego said. "You can't seriously be considering this." Victoria looked up at him, seeing the concern in his dark eyes. Diego had been her anchor through the worst of times, the friend who'd stood by her when everyone else had fled. But he'd never moved in the circles she'd grown up in, never experienced the particular cruelty of high society's games. "It's $50,000, Diego. Money isn't worth your soul." Victoria laughed, but there was no humor in it. "My soul? I'm not selling my soul. I'm playing a part for one evening, with a man who clearly has an agenda that goes beyond simple revenge." Diego moved closer, his voice gentle but insistent. "I saw the way he looked at you, Victoria, and the way you looked at him." Victoria turned away, but she couldn't escape. The truth in Diego's words, Nathan Cross, was dangerous. Not just because of his wealth and power, but because of the way he'd made her feel in those few minutes. Alive, electric, like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. That evening, Victoria sat in her small apartment above the gallery, the contract spread across her kitchen table. She'd read it 3 times, looking for hidden clauses or impossible demands. But it was straightforward, almost disappointingly so. One evening, one performance, $50,000. About her father, about the way their world had crumbled when his crimes came to light. How quickly the invitations had stopped coming, how former friends had crossed the street to avoid her. The gallery was her way of proving she could build something legitimate, something worthy of respect. But respect wouldn't save her from bankruptcy. Victoria picked up her phone and dialed the number on Nathan's card.
Ow.
He answered on the first. "Ring, I accept," she said without preamble. "Good." His voice carried a note of satisfaction. "I'll have a car pick you up at 6 on Saturday. We'll need to go over the details beforehand." What details? Your backstory? How we met? How long we've been together? What makes you so irresistibly attracted to me?" There was dark humor in his voice. "These people are sharks, Victoria. They'll smell a lie from across the room. I grew up with these people, remember? I know how they think. That's exactly why I chose you." Nathan paused. "There's something else. You'll need a dress. I'm sending a stylist tomorrow. I have dresses, not like this one. Trust me." After hanging up, Victoria sat in her kitchen, staring at the signed contract. She'd just agreed to something that felt like stepping into a completely different life. The question was whether she'd be able to find her way back. The transformation, the stylist arrived at Victoria's apartment Friday afternoon with enough garment bags to dress a small army. Margot was a whirlwind of efficiency, her French accent making even the most mundane observations sound sophisticated.
"How, monsieur?"
"Cross, he has excellent taste," she said, unzipping the first bag to reveal a gown that made Victoria's breath catch. It was midnight blue silk that seemed to shimmer with its own light, cut to hug every curve while maintaining an air of elegant sophistication. "This will be perfect with your coloring." Victoria touched the fabric reverently. She'd worn expensive clothes before her family's fall, but nothing quite like this. "How much does something like this cost?" "Price is not your concern, Sherry. Your job is to be magnificent." Margot's eyes sparkled with professional pride. "And with this dress, magnificent you shall be." The fitting took 2 hours. Margot pinned and adjusted until the gown fit like it had been created specifically for Victoria's body. Then came the shoes, delicate heels that added 3 inches to her height, and jewelry that caught the light like captured starfire. "Now," Margot said, stepping back to admire her work, "you look like a woman who could bring a powerful man to his knees." Saturday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth. Victoria stood before her mirror, barely recognizing herself. The woman looking back was polished, confident, dangerous, everything Victoria had once been, before her world had collapsed. The car Nathan sent was a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. She slid into the leather interior, her heart hammering against her ribs. This was it. No backing out now. Nathan's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of one of the city's most prestigious buildings. When the elevator doors opened, Victoria stepped into a space that looked like it belonged in an architectural magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and the decor was masculine elegance at its finest. "Jor." "Late," Nathan said, appearing from what looked like a home office. Then he saw her, and his words died in his throat. Victoria had the satisfaction of watching his composure crack for just a moment. His eyes traveled from her face down to her shoes and back up, and she saw something flicker in his expression that hadn't been there before. "You clean up well," he said finally, but his voice was rougher than usual. "So do you." And he did. Nathan in a tuxedo was a sight that made Victoria's pulse race. The formal wear emphasized his broad shoulders and lean frame, and his dark hair was perfectly styled. He looked like he could walk onto a movie set and fit right in. "Drink?" he asked, moving to a bar cart. "I probably shouldn't. I need to keep my wits about me." Nathan poured himself a scotch and studied her over the rim of his glass. "Nervous, should I be?" "These people eat the unprepared alive." He set down his glass and moved closer. "But you're not unprepared, are you, Victoria? You know their world? Better than most." She lifted her chin. "I know how cruel they can be." "Good. Use that." Nathan's eyes were intense. "Let me tell you about tonight. The gala is for the Children's Hospital Foundation. It's a very worthy cause. Lots of tax-deductible donations and photo opportunities. Celeste will be there with Blake Morrison. Morrison Industries. The very same. Blake's been trying to steal my government contracts for years. Celeste thought she was trading up when she left me for him." Nathan's smile was sharp. Tonight, she realized her mistake. Victoria studied his face. "This isn't just about winning her back, is it?" "Win her back?" Nathan laughed. But there was no humor in it. "I wouldn't take Celeste back if she came crawling on her knees. This is about making her understand exactly what she threw away. And what's that?" Nathan stepped closer, close enough that Victoria could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. A man who would have given her everything, would have built an empire with her name on it, but you're building one anyway. Yes. His eyes met hers, but now it's mine alone. Victoria felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Nathan Cross wasn't just wealthy and powerful. He was dangerous in ways that went beyond business. The kind of man who held grudges until they turned to poison. "What exactly am I supposed to do tonight?" she asked. "Be yourself. Be the woman who chose me over everyone else in that room." Nathan reached out and adjusted a strand of her hair, his fingers brushing against her cheek. "Be the woman who makes every man there wish he was me, and every woman wish she was you. And if I can't pull it off," Nathan's hand lingered against her face, "you will. I've seen you in action, Victoria. You have more steel in your spine than any of those society princesses. You've survived things that would have broken them." The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Cross, your car is here." Nathan stepped back, the moment broken. "Ready?" Victoria looked at herself one more time in the mirror by the door. The woman looking back was confident, beautiful, dangerous. Everything she needed to be. Ready. As they walked toward the elevator, Nathan offered her his arm. "One more thing," he said quietly. "Whatever happens tonight, don't let them see you break. I can smell weakness from a mile away." Victoria placed her hand on his arm, feeling the solid strength beneath the expensive fabric. "I won't break. I've been through worse than anything. They can dish out. I know." Nathan's voice was soft. "That's exactly why you're perfect for this." The elevator doors closed, and Victoria caught their reflection in the polished steel. They looked like power, like money, like the kind of couple that belonged in the pages of society magazines. The kind of couple that ruled the world tonight. That's exactly what they would be. The performance, the grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel, was a testament to old money and older traditions. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in ivory silk, while servers in white jackets moved between guests with champagne and canapes. Victoria felt the familiar tightness in her chest as she surveyed the room, recognizing faces from her past life. "Breathe," Nathan murmured against her ear, his hand warm on the small of her back. "You belong here. You still belong here," Victoria corrected quietly. "You belong here with me." His voice carried absolute certainty. That's all that matters. They made their entrance during the cocktail hour, and Victoria was acutely aware of the way conversations paused as they passed. Nathan Cross rarely appeared at social events, and never with a date. She could practically feel the speculation buzzing around them like electricity. "Nathan." A woman in red approached them with the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. "What a surprise to see you here, Margaret." Nathan's acknowledgement was polite, but cool. "Victoria, this is Margaret Ashford." "Margaret Victoria Sterling." Margaret's eyes sharpened with recognition. "Sterling? Isn't Harold Sterling's daughter?" Victoria felt Nathan's hand tighten slightly on her back, offering silent support. "Yes," she said simply. "How? ... Interesting." Margaret's smile turned predatory. "I heard you were running some little art gallery downtown." "Victoria owns one of the most respected galleries in the city," Nathan said, his voice carrying a warning edge. "She's discovered some remarkable talent. How wonderful." Margaret's tone suggested it was anything but. "To get back to whatever it is you're doing." As Margaret walked away, Victoria felt some of the old humiliation creep back. "She's going to tell everyone." "Let her." Nathan turned to face her fully. "Look at me, Victoria." She met his eyes, seeing something fierce and protective there. "You are not your father's crimes. You are not your family's shame. You're a woman who built something beautiful from nothing, and anyone who can't see that isn't worth your time." Before Victoria could respond, a commotion near the entrance caught their attention. Celeste Montrose had arrived. Victoria's first thought was that the woman was absolutely stunning. Tall and willowy, with platinum blonde hair swept into an elegant chignon, she moved through the room like she owned it. Her escort was Blake Morrison, a man in his 50s with silver hair and the kind of presence that came from generations of wealth and power. "Showtime," Nathan murmured. They approached the bar, strategically positioning themselves where they couldn't be missed. Nathan ordered champagne, then turned to Victoria with a smile that was pure theater. "You know," he said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "I was thinking about that weekend in Paris. The way you looked at the sunrise from our balcony." Victoria blinked, then caught on. "You mean when you surprised me with that impromptu trip? I still can't believe you convinced me to leave the gallery for 3 days. Was worth it to see you happy?" Nathan's hand found hers, his thumb stroking across her knuckles. "You work too hard," says the man who once stayed in his office for 36 hours straight. Victoria let her voice carry affection and gentle teasing. "I had to have Diego bring you food. They were good at this," Victoria realized. The conversation flowed naturally, peppered with invented memories and shared glances that suggested an intimacy that went beyond mere attraction. She found herself laughing at Nathan's stories, and not all of it was pretense. Nathan. They turned to find Celeste approaching, Blake at her side. Up close, she was even more beautiful, with perfect features and ice blue eyes. But there was something brittle about her perfection, like porcelain that might shatter if handled roughly. Celeste. Nathan's voice was perfectly neutral. "I didn't expect to see you here," Celeste said, her gaze flicking to Victoria with barely concealed curiosity. "You usually avoid these events. I had a compelling reason to attend." Nathan's arm slipped around Victoria's waist, pulling her closer. "Celeste Montrose, Blake Morrison. I'd like you to meet Victoria Sterling." "Charmed," Blake said, but his eyes were assessing. "Sterling. The name sounds familiar." "Victoria owns the Sterling Gallery," Nathan said smoothly. "She's been featured in Art Today magazine 3 times this year." It was a lie, but delivered with such conviction that Victoria almost believed it herself. "How lovely," Celeste said, her smile sharp as a blade. Nathan always did have a soft spot for projects. The insult hung in the air like poison. Victoria felt Nathan tense beside her, but she placed a gentle hand on his chest. "How sweet of you to say," Victoria replied, her voice honey smooth. "Well, I suppose we all need our little projects, don't we? It gives us purpose." Celeste's eyes narrowed at the subtle counterattack, but before she could respond, the dinner chime sounded. "Shall we?" Nathan asked, offering Victoria his arm. As they walked toward their table, Victoria was acutely aware of eyes following them. The performance was working perhaps too well. Nathan's attention felt startlingly real, and she found herself responding to it in ways that had nothing to do with acting. Their table was strategically placed with a clear view of Celeste and Blake's table. Throughout dinner, Victoria played her part perfectly. She laughed at Nathan's stories, let her hand rest on his arm during conversation, and looked at him with the kind of adoration that made other women envious. But somewhere during the evening, something shifted. Nathan's responses became less calculated, more genuine. When he looked at her, she saw something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Something that made her pulse race and her breath catch. "You're very good at this," he murmured during a quiet moment. "So are you." Victoria's voice was softer than she intended. "Almost too good." Nathan's hand found hers under the table, his fingers interlacing with hers. "Victoria, I need to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen," the host's voice interrupted. "Please join us on the terrace for dancing and after-dinner drinks." The spell was broken, but the electricity between them remained. As they moved toward the terrace, Victoria caught Celeste watching them with something that looked dangerously like jealousy. The plan was working perfectly. So why did Victoria feel like she was walking toward a cliff? The truth, the terrace overlooked the city skyline, strings of lights creating an intimate atmosphere under the stars. A small orchestra played soft jazz while couples moved together on the dance floor. Victoria stood at the railing, champagne in hand, watching the lights blur into impressionist paintings. "Quite a view," Nathan said, joining her. "It's beautiful." Victoria turned to face him. "The evening's been a success. Celeste has been watching us all night." "Has she?" Nathan's voice was distant. "I hadn't noticed." Victoria studied his profile. Throughout the evening, she'd watched him carefully, looking for signs of the satisfaction he should be feeling. His plan was working perfectly. Celeste was clearly affected by seeing him with another woman, and the entire room was buzzing with speculation about Nathan Cross's mysterious new girlfriend. But instead of triumph, Nathan seemed almost melancholy. "Dance with me," he said suddenly. Extending his hand, Victoria hesitated. Dancing seemed dangerous, too intimate for their arrangement. But she placed her hand in his, and he led her onto the dance floor. Nathan pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding her hand against his chest. Victoria could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong. The music was slow, romantic, and for a moment she forgot about their audience entirely. "You're a good dancer," she said softly. "My mother insisted on lessons." Nathan's voice was rough. "She said a gentleman should know how to lead. She sounds like a wise woman." She was. Nathan's eyes met hers. "She would have liked you. Something." In his tone made Victoria's breath catch. "Nathan, I need to tell you something." His grip on her hand tightened. "This evening, it isn't what I thought it would be." "What do you mean?" Nathan glanced around the dance floor, then guided her toward a quieter corner of the terrace. "I hired you to make Celeste jealous. Shown her what she lost when she chose Blake over me. I know that it's working." So Nathan's laugh was bitter, because I barely thought about her all evening. I've been too busy being amazed by you. Victoria felt her heart skip. "Nathan, don't what? Don't tell you that you're the most captivating woman I've ever met. Don't admit that this started as performance, but became something real." "We have a contract," Victoria said desperately. "This is business. Forget the contract." Nathan's hands framed her face. "I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, Victoria, but the biggest one would be letting you walk away tomorrow night without telling you how I feel." "How you feel?" Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm falling in love with you." The words hung between them like a bridge she was afraid to cross. Victoria had felt the pull between them all evening, the way their pretense had transformed into something deeper. But hearing Nathan say it made it real in a way that terrified her. "This is crazy," she said. "We barely know each other. I know you're brave enough to build something beautiful from nothing. I know you're loyal to the people you care about. I know you have more grace and strength than anyone in this room." Nathan's thumb traced her cheek. "And I know that when you look at me, you see something worth saving, Nathan, Mr. Cross." They turned to find Celeste approaching, her perfect composure finally cracked. Blake was nowhere to be seen. "Celeste." Nathan's voice was carefully neutral, but he didn't move. "Away from Victoria? I was hoping we could talk privately." Celeste's gaze flicked to Victoria with barely concealed hostility. "Whatever you want to say, you can say it in front of Victoria." Celeste's composure slipped further. "I made a mistake," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "leaving you for Blake. I see that now." Victoria started to step back, but Nathan's hand on her wrist stopped her. "You're right," Nathan said quietly. "You did make a mistake.
But not the one you think. I don't understand. Your mistake was thinking I'd still want you back."
Nathan's voice was gentle, but final. "What we had was comfortable, Celeste, safe. But it wasn't love, and this is." Celeste's voice rose, drawing attention from nearby guests. "This woman whose father is a criminal? This nobody with her little gallery?" Victoria felt the familiar shame wash over her, but Nathan's hand squeezed hers. "This woman," Nathan said, his voice carrying clearly across the terrace, "is worth 10 of you. She's built something meaningful with her own hands, survived things that would have broken you. And she has more integrity in her little finger than you have in your entire body." Celeste's face went white. "You'll regret this, Nathan. When you come to your senses, I already have." Nathan turned to Victoria, his eyes intense. "And I know exactly what I want." Celeste fled toward the ballroom, leaving them alone on the terrace. Victoria stared at Nathan, her mind reeling. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "Because it's true." Nathan's voice was soft, every word of it. "But your plan, my plan, was revenge. It was about the past." Nathan stepped closer. "You're about the future. My future, if you'll have me." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. "Nathan, this is insane. We have a business arrangement." "Then let's renegotiate." Nathan's smile was tender. "I'll pay off your gallery's debts, but not as payment for tonight." It's an investment in us, in what we could build together. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll have tried. But Victoria, I've spent the last 5 years building walls around my heart. Tonight, you've shown me what it feels like to let someone in. Victoria looked into his eyes and saw truth there. Not the calculated businessman who'd walked into her gallery, but a man who'd been hurt and was brave enough to risk being hurt again. The contract is null and void. Nathan pulled the papers from his jacket pocket and tore them in half. This isn't about money anymore. It's about love. Victoria felt her careful defenses crumbling. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. Nathan's hand found hers. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. Victoria looked around the terrace at the couples dancing under the stars, at the life she'd once been part of and lost. Then she looked at Nathan, at the man who'd seen her at her lowest and still thought she was worth fighting for. Okay, she said quietly. Let's try. Nathan's smile was radiant. Really? Really? Victoria stepped closer. But I have conditions. Name them. The gallery stays independent. Won't be anybody's kept woman. Agreed. And no more revenge schemes. If we're going to do this, we do it honestly. Nathan's laugh was genuine. Agreed. Though I think tonight was revenge enough. As if on cue, they saw Blake Morrison storm past the terrace doors, clearly furious. Through the windows, they could see Celeste in animated conversation with several other guests, her face flushed with embarrassment. I think your ex-fiancée is having a difficult evening, Victoria observed. I wouldn't know, Nathan said, pulling her closer. I've been distracted by more interesting company. Just so you know, Victoria said, letting her hands rest on his chest, I don't fall for men who try to buy me. Good thing I'm not trying to buy you anymore. Nathan's voice was warm with humor. I'm trying to earn you. That's going to take some work. I'm a very dedicated worker. Nathan's lips brushed her temple. I have all the time in the world. As they swayed together under the stars, Victoria felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not just for survival, but for happiness. For a future that was bright and full of possibility. 3 months later, Sterling Gallery hosted its most successful exhibition ever. The opening night was packed with collectors, critics, society figures, including several people who'd snubbed Victoria after her father's scandal. She stood before a painting that had been completed just that morning, watching the crowd with satisfaction. Penny for your thoughts? Nathan appeared beside her, looking handsome in a dark suit that was perfectly tailored but not ostentatious. Just thinking about how much has changed, Victoria said, accepting the champagne he offered. Any regrets? Victoria looked around the gallery, at the art that filled the walls, at Diego laughing with a group of collectors, at the life she'd built through sheer determination. Then she looked at Nathan, at the man who'd become her partner in every sense. Of the word none, she said firmly. Not a single one. Nathan's smile was soft. Good, because I have something for you. He pulled out a small velvet box, and Victoria's breath caught. Nathan, before you say anything, he said quickly, this isn't about contracts or arrangements or business deals. This is about love, about wanting to build something real with you, Victoria. Opened the box to find a ring that was elegant and understated. With a single diamond that caught the gallery lights like captured starlight. Victoria Sterling, Nathan said, dropping to one knee right there in the middle of her gallery opening. Will you marry me? The room fell silent. Victoria was aware of every eye on them, every held breath, every whispered speculation. But all she could see was Nathan, looking at her with hope and love and absolute certainty. Yes, she said, her voice carrying clearly across the gallery. Yes, I will. As Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her, the room erupted in applause. Victoria felt tears on her cheeks, but they were tears of joy, not sorrow. I love you, Nathan whispered against her lips. I love you too, Victoria whispered back. It meant it with every fiber of her being. Later that evening, after the last guest had left and the gallery was quiet, Victoria and Nathan sat on the floor beside her favorite painting, sharing a bottle of champagne and talking about their future. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't walked into my gallery that day? Victoria asked, her head resting on Nathan's shoulder. Every day, Nathan admitted. But then I remember that I didn't find you by accident. I found you because I was looking for something real, just didn't know it at the time, and now I know that the best things in life aren't planned or calculated or bought. Nathan's arm tightened around her. They're discovered. Like art, like love, like you. Victoria smiled, thinking about the journey that had brought them to this moment. From a desperate business arrangement to a love that had transformed both their lives. It hadn't been easy, and it hadn't been predictable, but it had been real. So, what happens now? She asked. Now we build something beautiful together, Nathan said simply, starting with forever. Victoria looked around her gallery at the art that surrounded them, at the life she'd created from nothing. Then she looked at the man beside her, at the future they would create together. Forever sounds perfect, she said, and as they sat there, in the quiet gallery, surrounded by beauty and possibility, Victoria knew that sometimes the most unexpected beginnings led to the most extraordinary endings. The end.